Hello, Dawn McAlpine here, Coldwell Banker West, back with our monthly market update for October. So we always start with a broad overview of what's happening nationally to our economy and real estate and the market. And then we're going to dive into local real estate information. So let's get started. According to Mark Fleming, housing has experienced a strong V-shaped recovery and is now exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Well, that's really not a surprise to you and I. We've been talking about this for a few months. And the next slide shows us a little closer. We see, and it's typical, right? We go into the fall, things start to slow down, we hit the holidays, and then January, families who've been wanting to sell and wanting to buy put their holiday decorations away, and now they're out looking for a new home. And so you see January, February, things are looking good, and then boom, the middle of March, the pandemic hits, the brakes go on, and until the beginning of May, where we see the recovery start to come up and come up pretty dramatically. And again, we want to talk about those four components that affect the recovery. That would be the demand, which is super high right now, supply, which is extremely low, price, which is going up because of supply and demand, and days on market, which is getting shorter and shorter. What that last slide shows us is that following the holidays and then hit with the pandemic as well, we have this large pool of pent up demand, both from buyers and sellers. And sellers, being exceedingly cautious, are deciding it's not worth the risk to their family to list the home and have strangers coming through to view that property. Now, if you're in that boat, if you're thinking about selling, but you're worried about having families come through and potentially, bringing COVID or the flu or anything else, we have a lot of strategies. The Department of Real Estate in California here has new protocol and guidelines that help to safeguard both myself, sellers, and the buyers to increase our safety while viewing property. So if you have any questions, give me a quick call. I'm happy to go over all of the ins and outs and details with you. So we have this pent up demand, and the way we know that there's this pent up demand is shown on our next slide, which is the year over year changes in metrics. So according to Showing Time, Zillow, and other online sources, showings are up 60% year over year. So people are out and they are looking. Purchase applications with lenders, banks, mortgage brokers are up by 25%. Deals, pending deals, are in escrow, we're waiting to finalize and close, up almost 22%. Existing home sales are up 10.5%, and new home sales are up 43%. Now, part of that is because the builders have been working to increase the number of, their inventory, the number of builds. And so we have a lot more new construction that is on the market for buyers like yourselves. And then the two areas that are the greatest challenge are the existing inventory, both for existing homes and for new homes. The inventory is down just dramatically. What this shows us is that there are too few homes for sale to satisfy the demand of the buyers. Now, a lot of families like you wonder, all right, we have high unemployment, we have a lot of people who have lost their jobs, businesses filing for bankruptcy, and so how is it that the housing market is still growing? Well, that is because most families, not to minimize it at all, but on a very large, look at the economy, most of the jobs that were lost and we're waiting to come back on are typically 18 to 25-year-olds, and they're typically in the service industry, like restaurants, movie theaters, and things like that. And so they aren't typically in the the market to purchase a home. I mean, there are the exception, but generally speaking, that's not the population that usually has a home to sell or is ready to make a purchase. So what's driving the economy now are those employed families who already own a home and they're wanting to maybe take their equity and buy a larger home or a fancier home, or they're out of college or out of trade school. They've got a great secure job. They've saved up some money and they're tired of spending that money on rent. So those are the buyers, you know, the 30 plus that are typically entering into the real estate market to buy a home and then to sell a home. And we're taking advantage, obviously, of the historically low interest rates. So in the United States, total spending by all consumers compared to January, you'll see January, February, March, April 1st, according to this graph, we were at the lowest point where people were just spending, you know, almost 32% less than they were January 1st. And then you see it's a steady and pretty dramatic growth of consumer spending. Now we're not back up at where we were at January or February or March before the pandemic really kicked in here in the United States, but we're only 4% lower than where we were. A lot of families are asking me now about forbearance, and what they're really wanting to know is how to time this market, right? So in 2008, 9, 10 was the peak. There were a lot of families who walked away from their homes, either in foreclosure or did a short sale with their bank's permission. They just didn't have the equity in their home that we have now, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So to time it, there's really no way to time it, right? You never know when the top of the market is until you've seen it come down. You never know where the bottom of the market is until you see it just start come up. So your best advice is that if you and your family are ready for a bigger home or a smaller home or your first home, and you're ready to make that move, then make that move. Make that decision based on what's right for your family, because there's no way to gauge the market or predict the market 100%. So if it's the right time for you and your family to buy a home, then move into that home and start making those memories, especially if you're planning to stay there, you know, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Any market adjustments you're likely to be able to absorb and just ride through. So let's look at the forbearances. So the number of mortgages that are in active forbearance is going down. That means that if you've lost your job and you don't know how you're going to make your mortgage payment, you can call, and please do. The sooner you call your lender, the better. Call your lender, let them know what your situation is, and ask about your options. Just because you call and ask about forbearance doesn't mean you have to participate, right? But what the slide is showing is there were much more people taking advantage of the forbearance programs that their lenders and mortgage companies offer in May, June, July. And then in August, you start to see a pretty regular, gradual decline. So what that means is there are fewer people asking to go into forbearance, as well as people who went into forbearance have gone ahead and caught up with back payments, or are at least now current on making their payments going forward. So I want to just reiterate again, if you are having any financial difficulty due to the pandemic, a lost job, change of employment, it's always best to contact your mortgage company right away. Just find out what your options are. Does that make sense? No sense letting pride or fear get in your way. Just ask the question, hey, what can you offer? Take your notes, talk to your family or yourself about the pros and cons, and then again, make a decision that's in the best interest of you and your family right now and going forward. you won't know those answers, you won't know your options until you call and ask. So strongly, strongly advise you to just pick up the phone, give them a quick call, ask a few questions. It can be embarrassing, it can be intimidating calling the lender, but it's just a human being on the other end of the line, and they really do want to help you. So give them a call if you need. For the last decade, we have been fighting a battle of low inventory, and our next slide is going to give us a little insight. So let's take a look. So you can see on the left, starting at 1999, there was a low inventory, and so that's a seller's market, right? That middle band of blue, 6 to 7 months, that's a neutral market. You're not in a, you don't have any more of an advantage whether you're a buyer or a seller. It's pretty neutral. So you see here 1999 through 2005, moving into 2006, it was a pretty strong seller's market. And then we hit the Great Recession. And so the number of homes at that time really didn't have the same equity that the homeowners have now in today's market. And so 2006, 2007, 2008, as families were walking away from their homes with short sales or foreclosures, the inventory was just going up, up, up. And you see in 2010, we were over 12 months of inventory. That means that if you put your home on the market today, it on average was taking 12 months to find a buyer and close escrow. So that's a really long time, a whole year. Even 2008, we're hovering around 11 months. 2007, just over 9 months. That's the year. That's 3/4 of the year. And so compare that inventory, that oversupply of inventory through 2010. And then as we're coming down to today's market, we are at 3 months, 3.5 months of inventory in the nation. Here in San Diego, most communities are under 2 months inventory. So that's why you're seeing such a strong seller's market, multiple offers on homes that are going on the market, and they're almost being sold before they can get on the market. So 2008, 2010, this huge oversupply of inventory, dramatically different, like just opposite of where we are in today's market. There's a couple of things that explain that. So why do we have a short supply or a low supply of inventory on the market? Well, there's a couple of things. Well, since the Great Recession, families used to sell their homes and buy new homes every 5 to 7 years. Now that's stretching out to 12. And so people are just staying in their homes longer, and we're not getting that same turnover. We also have the pandemic. So families that may have had a life change, lost a job, got a new job, a promotion, got married, got a divorce, new baby in the family, college kids coming home. There's a lot of reasons that families would be wanting to move, and now with the pandemic, they've just decided to wait as an overabundance of caution and see where things go, see what happens with the pandemic, and then sell at a more convenient time or a time when they're just feeling more confident. So the percentage of homeowner equity in 2020 is dramatically different than where we stood in 2008, 9, and 10. You see here that 42% of homeowners in the United States have zero mortgage. 42%, that's huge. And then we have another almost 17% who have between 60 and 99% equity. We have another slice of 12% of homeowners in the United States have 40 to 60% equity. Only 7.3% have less than 10% equity. So only 7.3% of homeowners in 2020 have less than 10% equity. And having equity gives homeowners confidence, and it gives them options. So if I were to lose my job and I wasn't able to make my mortgage payment, and I really didn't see when I would be able to replace that job or get back to that same job. I may decide to sell my home now, cash in on all that equity in my home, put it in the bank, and use that to support myself and my family until I can afford to buy another place. Or if I'm close to retiring, I may decide sell my big house and downsize into a less expensive, smaller home, and then use that equity. So because so many families have so much equity in their home, they're not going to, or they're much less likely to choose foreclosure or a short sale. Now, we always have families, unfortunately, in the market who run into some financial difficulty and they do find themselves in foreclosure. That happens. We always have a small number of foreclosed properties. However, with the forbearance program, allowing up to a year to not have to pay your mortgage, that's buying some homeowners some time. And then with so much equity, it gives homeowners so many more options. Whereas in 2008, 9, 10, the only option really was if you didn't have equity and if you had a financial hardship and you weren't able to make that payment, especially back in those days, they were selling a lot of interest only adjustable loans. So you only paid interest for 3 years or 5 years. And then at that time, the principal was added back on. So now your payment essentially doubled. And if you weren't able to make that payment and you didn't have the equity to sell and cash out, it was, some families felt that was their only option was to do a short sale or go into foreclosure. This is not 2008, 9, 10. Homeowners now have a great deal of equity, and so it's a very, very different situation. So looking at projections on future home prices, they're all over. They start at negative 1.1% with house through Ivy Zellman at predicting a 5.9% home appreciation year over year. Here's another look at our inventory challenge. The orange line is total listings, right? And the green line is month to month, how we've been seeing some, uptick in the number of listings, but they're getting sold as quickly as they come on the market. As homeowners gain equity in their homes, they're more likely to consider using that equity to purchase a larger or more attractive home. This is the wealth effect of a rising equity. In today's housing market, fast rising demand against the limited supply of homes for sale has resulted in continued house price appreciation. And that's Mark Fleming, the chief economist at First American. So that's a look at what's happening nationally. Now let's take a quick look at what's happening locally in your market. In San Diego County overall, the median sales price is $655,000, which is up 13.9% from this time last year. Average days on market, 7. In the Del Cerro Allied Gardens area, the median sales price is $770,750, which is up 7% from this time last year. Average days on market is 15. Last month, there were 28 new listings, 26 went pending, and 23 closed. Right now, Del Cerro Allied Gardens area is sitting at 0.4 of a month, which is less than 1 month, 2 weeks inventory. So there you have it, our market update for October. If you have any questions about your home value, the market in your neighborhood, or just any general real estate questions, please reach out. I'm here to help. Again, Dawn McAlpine, Coldwell Banker West. Thanks for listening and make it a great day.